and to develop the best vaccines. And let this do without patents, and let them be copied all over the world very fast.
Right.
The taxpayer would be much better off, and it would be much cheaper.
Now, Dr. Wolfgang Wodarg, I want to move quickly because I know your time is precious here and you're very busy. I have so many questions, but a thought that I just had when you mentioned the third world, they're already saying they're going to ship this throughout the year around the world when they admit that the virus is already mutated and is already even weakening more. And in 6 months, a year, it'll be absolutely worthless if it wasn't already worthless. And they're saying they're going to ship the unused vaccine because the hoax failed, the people didn't take it en masse, to the third world. I mean, is that not manifest fraud on top of fraud right there?
But there is no influenza in the hot countries, and they don't need it. And there is no influenza in the Arctic neither. The virus needs a certain climate to spread, and this is only in our regions in winter. And so the third world doesn't need it really. But I had a discussion yesterday with Japanese colleagues, and the Japanese, they are going to have the vaccination campaign in February, so they just will start now, and they know already that it is a very mild flu to come, and there is no danger in it, but Japan bought vaccines for 110 million people, and they cannot retire from this vaccine contract, so they are in a very, very big political dilemma now. And they have very big problems because the Japanese people, they already know it wouldn't be necessary to get vaccinated. What shall Japan do with all its vaccines?
But that's my next issue, is this is destroying the credibility of the entire medical system when it is Big Pharma that is doing it. In the Council of Europe report, it is discussed that this is an untested, dangerous vaccine. Can you speak to that? Also, can you speak to the German military and government ministers being given a special additive-free vaccine? That isn't a very strong vote of confidence.
Yeah, this is 2 points. The first thing is that the pandemic vaccine is a pandemic vaccine, and it was planned to be produced very fastly, and so this is we have additives, adjuvants, and with it, and they are only tested with elderly people. This is why the FDA in U.S. didn't allow this vaccine to be used with children and younger people in U.S. And so U.S. population is better protected against those side effects. But in Europe, we just use them for children, for pregnant women, and there's no clinical testing has been done with children and with some of the vaccines. And there are other vaccines which you spoke about for soldiers. This is a vaccine which takes the whole virus, and it is known to have more side effects. So it's not better than the ones the rest of the population gets.
Well, yes, sir. Doctor, we know what adjuvants did with the anthrax shot. The Pentagon suspended it because in young people, as you know, doctor, but the audience may not, when you give a young person who has a really strong immune system an adjuvant, it can trigger what the cytokine storm and have the lungs fill full of liquid similar to hemorrhagic fever, correct?
I don't have this scientific evidence for this, but I know that the adjuvants, they stimulate the immune system enormously. And this may lead to a misfunction of the immune system, which means that there may be autoimmune diseases or allergic diseases result afterwards within those vaccinated people. So
what about all the confirmed cases of Guillain-Barré?
Guillain-Barré was there when they had this vaccine. It was in U.S. when they stopped having this, and this is there is evidence for this. But what they use now is a new patent adjuvant, and we don't have any evidence how the side effects of this will be. But this is a big risk, and it would not be necessary to take this risk.
I mean, sure, if the flu was killing tens of millions of people, it might be if you could trust the shot. But if it's a mild, bottom line, doctor, you personally looking at the research, is this a giant hoax? Was this, I mean, we know they paid off most of the big health ministers to come out and fearmonger. Is that not a conflict of interest?
It is, for sure it is a conflict of interest. Those people who are there for their shareholders, who have the interest of the pharmaceutical companies and to earn a lot of money, they have different reasons to decide, and they decide differently than those people who are in charge of public health. and of safety. And the WHO is an institution, a public institution for public health, and its decision should not be influenced by the interests of the industry. And this seems to be what happened. There is no other explanation for those decisions.
Bottom line, it's a hoax.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Dr. Wolfgang Wodarg is our guest. We're going to give you his website when we come back. I'm going to try to twist his arm into staying maybe to 40 after, because we're going to have one 5-minute segment when we come back. And I've got this huge list of questions. If it sounds like I'm interrupting you, Doctor, it's just I mean, you are such a great person. This council is doing such great work exposing this fraud. It's Wodarg.de is the website. We've got it up on screen at prisonplanet.tv for the viewers. Radio listeners can go to Infowars.com and link over. We've got him till 40 after, graciously giving us a lot of time. He was the head of the investigation for the 47-member nation body, Council of Europe, Parliamentary Assembly over health, and they just had the start of the intense investigation. I want to get into that in the next segment. Any new breaking info that came out, what you were told by Big Pharma that you had before you. But first, Doctor, you talk about the bird flu, and I have the Czech Republic news. I have the London Telegraph, where they were mixing weaponized, very deadly bird flu in. Thank God they found out it was killing the test animals. We have homeless people die after bird flu vaccine trial in Poland. Roughly 30% that were given it died. The media never said what big pharma company that was. You mentioned that hoax as well. Can you speak to that?
Oh, I'm not so much in this matter. I only know that the enterprise of Baxter sent such stuff to 16 laboratories in Europe, and that in Czech Republic they found out that it is a very dangerous mixture which they send, and it is said that they send it by accident, but the enterprise doesn't declare anything. And as far as I know, there have been no parliamentary investigation. I think there should be a very deep and thorough investigation on this. What I know is there is some courts dealing with this, so we have to look at the single states. And I think the German parliament should, too, be engaged in this and have a look what happened, and why it happened. It is a very dangerous thing. If those materials are handled, if those dangerous viruses are handled by people who are not very responsible and who are not very much bound to public interest and to public health, this is the dangerous thing. And if an enterprise which goes for money has such stuff, I think it is not, we should not allow this.
I also saw a lot of top genetic engineers and scientists in the headlines. I would imagine you saw it, Doctor, saying this was clearly a manufactured, that the swine flu appeared to come out of nowhere in the wrong hemisphere, wrong time of year, and that it had a pedigree leading back to laboratories.
It is a funny thing that it went like it went, and it is an unusual event which happened, and the blow-up which was made very soon after the whole thing started seems to be an indication that there were people already waiting for something to happen to use what happened for their purposes. It looks like that, but we have to find out what really happened, and I don't know it.
Well, sir, you told me off air you were aware of Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. I will send you today the secret Department of Cemetery document we got in January of 2009 and the clips of an emergency manager who we did not give his name, but we confirmed who he was. We interviewed him. Others interviewed him. I interviewed him off air. We had the reporter on who interviewed him with the newspaper.com. In January, 3 months before the hype in Mexico City began, they went all over the U.S., from California, Illinois, New York, and I got the Bureau of Cemeteries, and said millions will die, prepare for martial law. Now, it appears that was done. Also, in April, got secret documents, Department of Health in Texas, where they told them we're really at level 6, and that the government was scaring the locals covertly to create this fear. So clearly, sir, we know before it even popped up in Mexico that they were hyping this.
I don't know whether your parliamentarians in your parliament, whether they are after, they should be after this too, because when we have such information in parliament, normally the opposition goes for it, and the opposition tries to find out, and the parliamentarians have the right to investigate everything. Every door has to open if a parliamentarian comes, and it has to be made obvious. We have to see all the files. This is how we work normally in many countries of Europe. In Germany, I did this many times, and this should be done, and there should be investigations. And so I think this is a very big and very severe suspicion we must have, and so we have to be sure.
Well, sir, going back to the hoax, which you're agreeing clearly it's a hoax, what was the point of the hoax? And we also know, again, all these different government ministers in health, a lot of them are on the payroll of these companies.
I know about some countries that there are lists now of scientists who advised the Minister of Health, and those scientists are on the payroll of several companies. I know this I have information about France, I have information about Holland, I have information about in Britain. So, and my colleague, he will from the Labour Party, a parliamentarian from Great Britain, who will continue to